All right, let's talk banking. You know, sometimes it can feel like it's full of secret codes and acronyms that nobody ever explains. But don't you worry, because in this explainer, we're going to break down some of the most important ideas in Indian banking. We'll make them simple, practical, and super easy to get your head around.
Right? It totally does sometimes. You hear terms like KYC, NRI, or you see like 5 different kinds of ATMs, and you're just left wondering, what does any of this actually mean for me? Well, today we're playing translator. We're going to turn all that confusing jargon into clear ideas you can actually use. So, let's dive in.
First things first, before you can do, well, anything with a bank, the bank has to know who you are. And that brings us to our very first and maybe most important concept, KYC. We're going to follow a character we'll call Ria to see exactly how this works in the real world.
So, KYC. It stands for Know Your Customer, and it is the absolute foundation of your entire relationship with a bank. And look, it's not just about filling out forms. It's a really crucial security step. By making sure you are who you say you are, banks protect the whole financial system from some pretty serious stuff, like fraud and money laundering.
So let's see this in action. Ria wants to open a new savings account. She just walks into the bank, and they ask for some basic proof of who she is and where she lives. She hands over her Aadhaar and PAN cards, they verify it, and boom, her account is open and ready to go. See? It's a pretty straightforward process.
And the great thing is, the system is designed to be really accessible. Banks accept a whole bunch of different documents, anything from a passport all the way to an NRGA job card. And even for people who might not have any of these, there's an option called a small account. It has some limits, for sure, but it makes sure that just about everyone can be part of the financial system. It's a huge part of what we call financial inclusion.
Okay, so you've done your KYC, your account is open, now what? How do you get your money without having to wait in a long queue at the bank? Well, that, of course, brings us to our next topic, the good old ATM.
The ATM, or automated teller machine, is honestly one of the most powerful tools in modern banking. It gives you access to your money 24/7. You can pretty much think of it as your own personal bank teller who literally never sleeps. It's always there when you need to grab some cash, check your balance, or do a few other things.
Now, here's something you might not know. Not all ATMs are created equal. They're actually color-coded for different purposes. A white label ATM is owned by a non-banking company. A brown label is run by a third party but has a bank's logo on it. And then you get these really specific ones. Green label ATMs are for agricultural transactions. Pink label ATMs are exclusively for women to create a safer space. And you've got high-tech biometric ATMs that use your fingerprint, which are so important for rural banking.
Okay, here's a number every single bank customer should burn into their memory. If an ATM transaction fails, you know, the machine says the money's been debited but no cash comes out, the RBI has a rule. Your bank must reverse that transaction within 7 working days. If they don't, they owe you a penalty of 100 rupees for every single day of delay. The takeaway here, know your rights.
So far, everything we've talked about has been about banking inside India. But what happens if you're an Indian citizen but you live and work somewhere else in the world? Let's imagine a guy named Rohan who's just moved abroad. His banking needs are totally different, which brings us to the world of non-resident Indians, or NRIs.
So, who exactly is an NRI? Well, it's pretty simple. It's any Indian citizen who lives overseas for their job or for business, but still holds an Indian passport. Our guy Rohan, a software engineer working in the USA, he's a perfect example of an NRI. Now, for NRIs, there are 2 main types of bank accounts, and the difference is actually pretty simple. You've got the NRO, or non-resident ordinary account. That's for managing money you earn in India, like rent from a property you own. The interest on that money is taxed. Then you have the NRE, or non-resident external account. This is for the money you earn outside India. And here's the big perk. The interest is tax-free in India, and you can send that money back abroad whenever you want.
Okay, but what if an NRI, like Rohan, wants to save their money in, say, US dollars or British pounds? That's where the FCNR account comes in. Think of it as a fixed deposit, but held in a foreign currency. This is a brilliant move because it protects your savings from the ups and downs of the rupees exchange rate. And just like the NRE account, it's also tax-free and fully repatriatable.
All right, now for those who are managing their money across different countries, there are a couple of other tools that are really useful to know about. They might sound a bit complex at first, but I promise, the ideas behind them are actually really straightforward. This quote really says it all, doesn't it?
A DTAA is basically a treaty between two countries that says, hey, let's not tax the same money twice. For an NRI like Rohan, it makes sure that the income he earns isn't getting taxed by both India and the country he's living in. It's a super important agreement that just makes global finance fair.
Ever wondered how banks in different countries actually pay each other? Well, they use something called Nostro and Vostro accounts. It sounds way more complicated than it is. A Nostro account is just an Indian bank saying, that's our money held in your foreign bank. A Vostro account is the reverse, a foreign bank saying, that's your money held here in our Indian bank. That's it. It's just their way of keeping track of different currencies with each other.
So we've covered how you prove your identity, how you get cash, and how banking works across borders. Now, let's put all these pieces together with one last story, just to see how they all connect in an ordinary person's life.
I want you to meet Meera. She's a homemaker from Nagpur, and her story is the perfect example of how all these concepts we've talked about, from KYC to the different ATMs, all work together to empower regular people. So first, Meera does her KYC with just her Aadhaar card to open a financial inclusion account. Simple. Next, she needs some cash, so she goes to a biometric ATM. No card needed, she just uses her fingerprint. Later that day, her husband is traveling for work and easily withdraws money from a white label ATM. You see what's happening? That one simple act of verifying her identity has unlocked access to this entire diverse network of financial tools for her whole family.
And that really brings us to the big picture. We started this whole thing with KYC, proving who you are, and we saw how that single key unlocks everything else. As our banking world becomes more digital, and as borders become more connected, our financial identity is more important than ever. So the question is, what's next? It's something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.